I often say that you can't lead others if you can't lead yourself. And today I'm going to dig into that a little bit more, as well as talk about one of the worst leadership styles that you should never do and you should never hire. And I know that because I used to be that person. So let's dig into it. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. This is why leadership and self leadership are so deeply interconnected. If you expect other people to be able to do something that you yourself is not able to do, you're not an effective leader. If you're not able to overcome things in your personal development journey, you can't expect other people to do that. If you're not able to deal with and overcome your fears and step out of your comfort, then you can't expect your team to do the same. If you don't have integrity, you cannot expect your team to have integrity. If you don't put the company first, you cannot expect your team to do so. So, in order to be a really good leader, you want to be able to lead yourself first. I want to get into how personal leadership, self leadership impacts and is connected to business and corporate leadership. I'm going to start with an example that comes from myself. So, throughout my life, I have been losing and gaining weight and yo yo dieting a lot. And I really wanted to get into shape already from an early age. I started feeling self conscious about my weight since I was a kid, right? Um, since I was like in second grade, like not even 10 years old, I started feeling self conscious about my weight. And it makes sense because you're constantly bombarded with what are you supposed to look like, and you're still carrying like baby fat, but you're looking at these women who don't carry any, and you feel like you're wrong. I would also look at the people in my class, the girls in my class, and I would be like a few kilos, like I don't know, 5 pounds, which is I guess relatively much when you're a small size, but I was like slightly bigger than the others, but I felt much bigger. I felt like it was a really big deal. So ever since I was a small kid, I have been conscious about my weight. And as I grew up and I got older, I started understanding, there's a relationship between how much you move your body and how much you eat. And then I started trying out things. Now, there wasn't the same type of information available back then. This is before, the internet was as big of a thing as it is today. I wasn't like I would be getting advice from magazines, and I would be just testing out things. So I would avoid eating for days at a time to lose weight, which is not really the best way to go about it, especially when you're a young teenager. Um, I would binge eat and purge. It's like, okay, if I just vomit all of this back up, it's not gonna turn into fat on my body, which is also not a very good way to do it. In case you weren't aware. And then as I got older, I started getting more into exercise. I got more into eating healthy, but I still had a very, very emotional relationship to food, which meant that I would be doing really well, I'd be doing good, and then I would just end up like binge eating all of the sweet stuff and the fried stuff and the unhealthy stuff that I so deeply had wanted and desired, and that I felt I was lacking throughout the week. So as I was doing that, it was like, it was a hustle, it was a struggle. And eventually I would lose some weight, and then I would slowly go back to the old person, the old identity, and then just start, just eating less healthy again, moving less again. It wasn't until I really started working on my identity and my relationship to food and my relationship to exercise, and really starting to actually enjoy moving my body and eating healthy foods and not enjoying eating all of the crappy stuff, and releasing the wounds I had around eating unhealthy things. I removed the idea of that being comfort and love. And then I just replaced it with other things. I kind of healed that part of myself. And then when I do start feeling some sort of a craving, I would eat fruits. if I wanted something sweet, right? Without feeling that psychological or emotional need to have something, ice cream or cookies or cakes or whatever. So a lot of work had been done internally for me to become the person who now just have a much more consistent weight. And also I'm able to, if I do gain weight, I would notice very, very quickly, and then I will get back on track. I will figure out why was I off track in the first place, and then I'll kind of get back into it. And the thing is, before, I would just ignore the problem. I would ignore it. I would gain not a few kilos. We're talking 10, 20, 25 kilos, which is what, 50 plus pounds. And I would kind of know that it would be happening because all of a sudden I can't fit my clothes anymore, right? But I would still just ignore the problem. And one of the ways that I would ignore the problem is to avoid looking at full body mirrors, avoid having pictures taken of me, avoid trying on some of the clothes that I used to love wearing, which obviously I don't love wearing anymore because they're way too tight. And if some of my really good friends who are seeing what's going on started to kind of strike up a conversation about it, I would get extremely defensive. And I would get into the whole idea that there was so much trauma and so many wounds around needing to look a specific type of way for other people, and I would refuse to be part of that. And getting really much into kind of just an argument about it, that my worth is not related to my weight. And I made it such a big problem that they would stop talking about it, right? They came to me with like concerns about, are you okay, and very soon this is really not going to be healthy anymore, to just be like, okay, we can't talk to this person about this issue. And then I could just keep avoiding it. But the thing is, there was such a big difference between what I deep inside wanted, which was to feel beautiful and be able to wear my clothes again and feel lighter in my body and being able to do different types of exercise that I no longer really was able to do. And then the person that I was, and the person that I convinced myself that I was, and convincing myself that I was okay being much bigger, even though deep down I wasn't. And when there's this idea, like you have this thing deep down, and it clashes with what is in your head. What is your head trying to tell you? How are you trying to get out of this situation so you don't have to deal with the discomfort of confronting yourself? You create this irritated energy. You create this friction inside of yourself because there's a clash. There's a clash between what you deeply want and what you tell yourself that you want, so you don't have to deal with it. I was that avoidant person. I didn't want to have to deal with it. And I still catch myself once in a while. Let me not deal with this right now because, and I give myself a really good excuse. And then I know that, okay, I'm going to have to deal with this right now to break that previous pattern of mine. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because when I was first promoted as a team leader, relatively like a few months after graduating from business school, I was a hard worker. I was a good worker. I was energetic. I was, I was good with my colleagues. There was many things that you look at a person like that and think they would make a great team leader. I made a team leader. I wouldn't say I made a great one. It wasn't that everything was bad. There was definitely, when people came to me, I would deal with problems. I was a great problem solver. I was great at getting things done. But I was also the kind of person who would just do everything myself and then avoid talking to my team. Yeah. I would avoid dealing with my team members because I was uncomfortable with confrontations or uncomfortable discussions, or even just like uncomfortable with the fact that they might not be doing well. So I wouldn't ask them. I wouldn't ask them about how they're doing because I thought they might not be doing well and I don't know how to deal with that. And the thing is, when you're dealing with an avoidant leader, they might be a really good worker, but they're not going to be a very good leader. Because if you cannot lead yourself, you cannot lead others. If you're not the kind of person who can deal with difficult conversations, who can deal with difficult problems, who is able to look forward and look at how do we move past this, look at, okay, here is an elephant, let's talk about it. I constantly had to be instructed in, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. And if not, I would do anything to run away with it. And then once we were there and like, okay, this is the situation, I would know how to deal with it. But I would at all costs avoid having difficult conversations, avoid asking questions, and avoid moving towards a direction that I knew this can be uncomfortable. So when you can't lead yourself, which I was not very good at, you cannot lead others. Now, in terms of avoidance, it can really appear in so many areas of life. So if you have difficulties having conversations with people that you know can be uncomfortable or painful even, then how are you going to show up in a corporate or business context? If we're not able to show up as this person who has a lot of internal power and who's able to sit and talk to people about uncomfortable things, and who's able to dig deep, and who's able to be proactive in figuring out what needs to be solved before it gets too big. If you're not the kind of person who can address things before they escalate, then you're always going to have big problems. But if you're able to look at things and dive into things and handle things when they're still small, maybe just by asking a team member, how are you doing? How are things? I really couldn't do that. I was so uncomfortable doing that because I assumed that they would not have anything good to say. So I just let them do their own thing. And then they would have to come to me if there was a problem. Imagine if every single case in your business or in your team, people have to bring stuff to you before you paid any attention. Most likely you're not going to get any of these things presented to you until it's a problem. It's a big thing. Avoidance can also be not only in terms of, do you deal with your own problems, do you deal with the business problems, but also how you show up in your energy. If you show up with the kind of energy that you'd rather not, that, you know, don't bring difficult things to me, the kind of energy that's like, I'm here, but I'm kind of hiding a little bit. I'm here, but I'd rather not be too included. I'm here, but I don't want to be part of difficult conversations. Then there's going to be a really thick ceiling to where you can go. You'll maybe reach like medium management levels, but you'll never be able to lead at a high level. If that's okay with you, that's fine. You know, nobody says that everybody has to go and be an incredible leader and a high level leader. Entrepreneurship is not going to be for you either. Because in entrepreneurship, you have to deal with a lot of crap all the time. I know this because I have been coaching a lot of entrepreneurs who deal with a lot of crap all the time. Imagine if all entrepreneurs are just avoided, their businesses will collapse in a second. So in order for them to be able to be the kind of person who can show up and deal with difficult things, they have to first become the type of person who can deal with difficult things. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where you kind of just want to get out of a problem, you kind of want to just avoid talking about something, you kind of want to just like leave it and see if it goes anywhere by itself, or maybe someone else is going to pick that up, or maybe, you know, maybe it's just going to solve itself on its own. I would really suggest that you deal with it. You know, get your big girl pants on, big boy pants on, and deal with that problem. And exercise, practice dealing with these types of problems. Practice bringing things up when they're uncomfortable. Practice talking to your people, even and especially if you know that they're going to have something uncomfortable to say. Practice showing up in that power where you're like, I'm here to deal with stuff. I'm here to take care of things. And then as you also do that, you kind of grow your muscle for doing it. So what you think now are really big problems that you're kind of scared of and that you feel are difficult or you can't deal with them, once you reach much further in your journey, then those kind of problems won't even bug you anymore. Because you become the kind of person where big problems just, you know that they're going to be solved. You have the experience to deal with these problems. You know what to do in these situations. You know how to move forward. And you also know that the consequences are maybe not as dire as you thought they were. We have a tendency to make things really, really big in our heads. This is the worst case scenario. You're not going to die. Nobody's going to die. At least not in a context of business and leadership. So when you start showing up as your next level person, and you start realizing that there is a relationship between your personal life and how you lead in your professional life, you can start dealing with things on both sides, and you can start building the capacity of you as a human being. And once you start dealing with the capacity of you as a human being, and you start showing up in a much bigger energy, in a much more capable energy, in the energy of someone who people want to bring their problems to you because they know you know how to solve them, then that's when you can start really taking off in terms of your career and in your business. That's when your risk aversion starts diminishing. That's when you know that you can make much bolder moves. That's when you start being scared of everything. Sorry, that's my dog. I hope it's not too loud. He's making himself comfortable. Milo, can you stop? Thank you. So, sorry, I was distracted for a little bit. When you deal with that, when you develop that power in you, and you pay attention to what is your leadership style, what is your go-to default state when things go wrong, when you're not comfortable, and then you start thinking about what is the type of leader, a strong leader, what would they do in this scenario? And then just start doing something in that side, in that aspect. What would my highest, biggest, bossiest self do in this situation? What would the person that I admire the most in this context do in this situation? And then start acting from that. Once you start acting from that, you end up becoming that. And when you become that much bigger version of yourself, everything else becomes bigger as well. Problems, yes, but also results. Also how you show up in life. Also the opportunities that you get. So start by leading yourself. When you lead yourself, you can start leading others. I hope this was useful. Thank you so much for today. It's always nice with a daily check-in. And if you ever have any questions or anything that you'd like me to cover in a future video, please feel free to just comment that in the comment section. I will keep an eye out, and yeah, maybe I'll touch on that in the future. So thank you and have a beautiful day.